Hi, sorry about that. I tried to connect and it didn't work, so I've come onto my phone to do today's Facebook Live as part of Infant Mental Health Awareness Week. So those of you who've been following Blossom and Berry for a while will know that infant mental health is absolutely central to everything that we teach through our nurturing touch, massage and yoga classes. And it's something that I'm personally incredibly interested in, and I'm continually studying it. So I'm really excited that there's actually been a whole week devoted to infant mental health, and we've been sharing lots of resources to help you. Hi Natasha. So today's Facebook Live, I've tried to make it really specific and really useful to all of you out there, because when we talk about mental health, it's such a broad subject. So today's Facebook Live is actually about babies and stress, and the question is really, do babies suffer from stress, or do you think that you have a baby that feels stress or experiences stress and you're not quite sure what to do about it? Maybe it worries you, and maybe it's actually causing you stress because you're becoming anxious about your baby. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the, I think this is going to happen throughout the whole way through, sorry. I want to talk a little bit about stress in babies, what causes it, why it's not always bad, why it's actually necessary to some degree, what we can do to help babies balance their stress, and just to kind of reassure you a little bit about the stress relaxation cycle and how you can use things like touch and baby massage to actually help you feel more at ease and give you tools to soothe your baby as well. So I've written down a few questions that people have asked me about stress, and I thought I would just go through that with you. So the first thing is what actually is stress? We talk about it a lot, we hear the word, but actually what is stress and what causes it? So stress is really a reaction to your body producing adrenaline-based hormones called cortisol based hormones, and these are often referred to as stress hormones, and they are produced by your body in response to situations where you feel that you are at risk, or you feel anxious, or you feel threatened. And this comes from our really intuitive response to life and interacting with life and nature and our surroundings and our environment. So our body and our nervous system has developed something called the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, which I like to refer to as your fight or flight system and your rest and digest system. It's a part of your nervous system that you don't control, so it happens automatically. So it's not like something that we can think about and control. It happens in response to interaction with your environment. And what it does is it allows your body to react to different situations quickly, so you can adjust how your body responds to an environment to basically ensure your survival. So I'll give you a fantastic example to start off with. So if you were living out in the wild and you are fishing for your tea, and all of a sudden you see what you think is a crocodile in the water, you will identify that crocodile potentially as a threat. And as a result, your body will start to go into fight and flight mode and produce stress-based hormones to help you to either fight that crocodile, which maybe isn't such a good idea, or run away from that crocodile. So what those hormones do is they pump up your body to respond very, very quickly to ensure your survival. So they're going to raise your heart rate, they're going to raise your blood pressure, they're going to send all of your circulation to your muscles so you can run faster and you're fitter and you're stronger, whether you have to fight or run away. They are going to suppress your immune system because you don't need that at that point, and your digestive system. So everything that's going to happen is there to ensure that you survive that situation. And that's why having a fight or flight system is probably one of the reasons why we've managed to evolve and survive and be, where we are in the food chain and in the animal kingdom, because we have this ability to react to situations, and it's been very, very important. Another example would be in the city. If you are crossing the road and you're not paying too much attention, maybe you're looking at your phone, suddenly you look up, you see a car or a motorbike coming towards you. very, very quickly your body can react and you jump out of the way and you're safe. So that's a modern example as well. So we need these stress hormones to survive. But what is very important is that we have on the balance side of fight or flight is we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is called rest and digest. So what the parasympathetic nervous system does is it helps to balance the release of stress hormones in the body with positive feel-good hormones, endorphins, which then do the opposite of the stress hormones. So they lower your blood pressure, bring down your heart rate, boost digestion, boost your immune system. They start a whole cascade of relaxation responses through the body, through your main nerve, which is the vagus nerve, and they help you to relax. So throughout your day, you will be going through different states. Sometimes you might feel stress and anxiety, and you'll have more stress hormones being produced. Other times of the day, you'll be feeling more relaxed and you'll come back into balance again. And we can use different things to help to support the relaxation system, like breathing techniques, like connecting with nature, like gentle exercise, stretching. All of these things can help us to bring our stress system into balance. So stress in itself is not a bad thing, and you know, sometimes you need certain levels of stress to enable you to do things, and there's examples of people in emergency situations where people have found superhuman strength to maybe lift a car of someone who's been crushed or lift a tree out of the way, and scientists suggest this is because of the production of high amounts of adrenaline based hormones, which give us the ability to react in super stressful situations. So stress is not bad in itself, but if we think about what for a long time is that when stress hormones build up in the body, we can start to see the long-term effects of stress. So if you imagine stress all the time and your fight and flight system is left switched on, it can result in your heart having to work harder because it's beating faster, your blood pressure going higher, which has effects on your body, your immune system being compromised, which can make you more vulnerable for picking up disease, or just generally fatigue or not feeling so well. Your digestive system being not working as effectively can lead to things like constipation, and then also just general kind of frame of mind. If you feel quite stressed, then the next situation that you encounter, you might start to see a little bit more negatively or a little in more of an anxious way, which then causes more stress, and there you go with this stress cycle, which long term can lead you to actually have something like anxiety or panic attacks, or even a nervous breakdown. So we don't want to keep our stress response switched on for any longer than we need it, but we do need it. So that's important to know, and it's exactly the same with babies as well. So I've talked about what stress is and why it happens. So let's talk about stress with babies. So when we see babies, you know, they look like they have everything they need. You know, they've got their food, they've got care, they can sleep when they want. They've got people looking after them. Hopefully they're nice and warm. They have their nappy changed. So in theory, babies should have all their needs met and they shouldn't experience stress. However, that is not always the case. First of all, when babies are born, before babies are born, studies have shown that babies can actually be affected by the stress levels of their mothers. So if you've had a very stressful or anxious pregnancy, it is possible, some studies suggest that those levels of stress hormones can actually travel over to your baby, even at the very early stages of conception and development, and it can actually potentially alter their ability to handle stress as an adult, even in the womb. So that's quite an interesting thing to be aware of if you're pregnant, that how you feel about yourself and your stress levels can actually affect your unborn baby. There's also been studies done of women who have seen, for example, 9/11. There was a study done of women who were pregnant and present at 9/11 who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and their babies were actually, when they were born, had lots of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, even though they had only experienced it whilst in the womb. So there was such a transfer of stress hormones because of that event that the baby was actually affected by it. And when the babies were born, they were more sensitive, they were quite fretful, quite anxious, they were quite high needs babies, and they became overstimulated very quickly. So stress can affect our babies before they are born. The second thing is that birth itself for babies can be pretty stressful. So studies have shown that babies' bodies are actually flooded with stress-based hormones to help them to to prepare them really for being born. And so when babies are born, often they can have almost like a stress hormone hangover, which can make them again a little bit wired, a little bit oversensitive, and obviously being born itself, I can't even imagine the difference of coming from this incredibly nurturing, warm, comforting environment into what can be a sterile environment, an environment where you're cold, where you don't recognise anyone, you can't see, everything's muffled. Can you imagine? It can be very, very stressful for babies. Not always, but it can be. So birth itself can be quite stressful, which is why we try to encourage new mummies to give their babies skin to skin, because instantly in the physical connection of the mother's body, a baby's heart rate begins to be regulated, body temperature is regulated, you get the flow of oxytocin, which stimulates all the relaxation responses in the body. Baby's breathing is synchronized with mummies as well. So that's why, one of the reasons why skin to skin is really important, because it can help baby make that adjustment from the relaxed environment of the womb to the more slightly stressful environment of the hospital, or even in a home birth situation. And again, that's why when we birth, we want to think about what we find to be relaxing, but also remember babies being born to bright white lights and clinical smells and strangers and noises can be very stressful. So in a home birth environment, often, you know, with low lights, warm environment, blankets, things like that, it can help to manage that process for baby. So babies can have stress, can be affected by stress in the womb, they can be affected by stress at birth, and they can also be affected by stress, you know, really at any time once they're born, because to babies the whole world can seem very threatening, and so babies have the same fight or flight response in the body. They have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, and so they are going to react to anything in their environment that they see threatening and they see as possibly frightening to them. So how does this kind of, what might cause stress in babies then? So babies can find all kinds of things stressful. So when babies are communicating with us, they do it from birth very subtly through their body language and cues, and they also do it through crying, obviously, which we kind of recognise as a stress cue. So babies will cry to tell us what they need. So it may be that they have physical needs, like they are wet or they're cold or they're hungry or they're tired, but it can be that they're communicating their emotional needs, that they're frightened or they're anxious, or, you know, just to convey the fact that they are going into this stress state. Now, as their primary caregivers, as their mummies and daddies, we are here to help them to regulate their emotions, because babies can't control the relationship between the fight and flight system and the rest and digest system very well on their own. That whole process can take pretty much, you know, up to, well, it's continually happening for babies, but especially at the beginning, babies really rely upon us to help them to regulate their emotions. So when ultimately a baby feels calm and relaxed when they're physically connected to their caregivers. So babies are designed to be as close to their mummies and daddies as they can. They're mammals, so and we're mammals. So as mammals, we're carrying species. So we're designed from birth to keep our babies close to us. We're not birds who fly away and create a nest and put our babies in and then fly away and do what we need to do. Mammals keep their babies close to them, and that's how mammalian babies feel that they are protected, they're safe, and they're comforted. So in our culture, in the West, we tend to actually physically separate ourselves from babies quite a lot during our day. We might have, put our babies in baby chairs or in prams or baby carriers, or put them in a separate room from us, or a crib. Now, babies don't really understand that experience of physical separation. So when a baby is physically separated from you, they hear something, or they experience something, or maybe they even just brush their hand across their face and they don't know what it is, they can start to feel stressed or anxious. So they will reach out for us by communicating through crying that they need us to help them regulate these stress hormones and this stress experience within the body. So when babies are isolated from us, they can experience fear, and as a result of that, they can start to produce stress hormones. Now, the good news is that we go in and we pick our babies up and we talk to them and we ask them what's wrong, and we give them cuddles and we give them skin to skin, and they physically connect with us. That helps them to know that they're safe and they're secure. When we cuddle our babies, we produce oxytocin, which is a relaxation-based hormone which physically brings down the levels of stress hormone in baby's body and helps them to feel more balanced. So when our babies cry, when we pick them up, the stress hormones that are produced are then balanced out with the love-based hormones that they receive, and everything is fine. So that's why babies that are connected to their mummies, and this is what I've seen in Malawi, is that babies that are carried by their mummies, that they're with their mummies all the time, they're breastfeeding, they're co-sleeping, those babies tend to cry less and they tend to communicate stress less, because from what I can see, they are less stressed because they're physically connected with their parents, so they don't have that sense of fear and isolation. So because of that, they feel that the majority of their needs are met through physical contact, so therefore there's less stress hormones, they feel less threatened, and they cry less. That's just my own observations, and there are some studies that actually support that. So in essence, if we want to help babies feel less stressed, we need to be more physically connected with them. And then through that, we're able to respond to their needs more quickly, and they have that constant physical reassurance of our bodies to help them feel more secure and accepted. So if we think about what I'm going to talk about then is how we can relax babies. So to relax your baby, really, it is to respond to your baby's cues. So a lot of the time, babies are communicating with us all the time, so we just need to pick up our babies, listen to our babies, allow our babies to talk to us, allow our babies to tell us what they need. We need to tune in and try to meet their needs, and when we do that, you will be helping your baby to reduce any stress hormones in the body and help them to feel more relaxed. And something that's quite interesting about babies that I learned recently is that babies, as well as having fight or flight, they actually have something called the freeze response. So that can be when a baby becomes so stressed and so overwhelmed by their environment that they actually just freeze. So their bodies just simply can't cope with that level of stress, and so they actually learn to not try to communicate that to the rest of the world. They almost become trapped within this overwhelming amount of stress hormone within the body, and that's often what is seen in orphanage settings where children don't have their needs responded to, and they can be left and they can be neglected, and those babies have a build-up of stress hormones which long term can actually block how the individual brain cells in the brain are wired and change their brain architecture and the emotional blueprint that they have to interact socially with everyone as an adult. It can actually be changed permanently due to the high levels of stress hormones that the baby is experiencing. So it is very important in the first critical 1001 days, which start from conception and finish around 2, that babies are not exposed to high levels of stress hormones, because they can cause permanent changes in baby's brain architecture, which means that babies will just have they won't have the same blueprint to be able to form relationships as easily. They may suffer from things like anxiety or separation anxiety. They can, as an adult, suffer from things like mental health issues, depression, panic attacks and things like that. Now, I'm generalising a little bit here, but actually what I'm using is the scientific studies that have been done on the connection between early years, emotional attachment, and actually later outcomes in life. So although I'm generalising, there are a huge amount of studies that actually support what it is that I'm saying. So also some people ask me, are some babies more stressed than others? Well, this kind of really depends on how your baby responds to their environment. So some babies are a little bit more hypersensitive than others. It may be that their nervous system is a little bit more immature. So in which case, when they hear a noise or when they have a sensation, they may get hyper arousal, so they respond to that in a more dramatic way than another baby, and so they then communicate that to us by crying. So some babies do cry more because they are a little bit more anxious, and that could be a little bit to do with their genetics. It could be to do with what's happened during the womb for them, what kind of birth they've had, but it also could be again connected to how much physical contact and how closely connected they feel to their caregiver. So if you do have a high needs baby, a hypersensitive baby, or a baby with hyperarousal, you need to be quite careful how you interact with that baby, because although our instinct might be to keep our babies physically close, as I mentioned before, sometimes with those babies they can actually get overstimulated even by that being handled a lot, or a lot of interaction. So it's about learning about your high needs baby, your hypersensitive baby, and finding out what it is that they need, how much stimulation they need to help them to balance those emotions. So it could be that they like a blanket placed around them to give that sense of confinement, physical touch and physicality, but that's enough. For example, they couldn't have a massage, or they wouldn't want to go into the bath and do skin to skin, or they don't want to have too much eye contact. So not all babies are completely relaxed by touch. It is getting to know your baby and getting to know what amount of touch can soothe your baby and what amount of touch is too much for your baby. And again, that's just to do with learning from your baby and tuning in and listening. So some babies can be more stressed than others. What are the long-term effects of stress in babies? Well, I mentioned that before about the brain architecture and that critical 1001 days that starts from conception all the way up to 2. What I would say is, from my work in orphanages that I've done in Malawi, babies there sadly don't have one-to-one attention. The babies there do experience stress because they're left on their own. There is a lot of crying in the nursery, and there isn't a lot of people there to go and respond and give them the care that they need. They don't have a lot of physical connection with their caregivers because they spend a lot of time in their cots on their own, and the older babies often kind of push each other around, and sometimes they can be a little bit aggressive to each other as well. So it can be an incredibly stressful environment for babies. And so with those babies where they've had stress and maybe they haven't had the opportunity for connection, for attachment, and for that sense of touch, and caregivers helping them to regulate their emotions, what you can see is those babies become quite withdrawn. So when I first went to the orphanage and started working with the babies, they didn't want to make eye contact. When we touched them with their just over their clothes, they would freeze and feel really uncomfortable. When we sang to them, they couldn't recognise, or they didn't do anything to repeat back. They had no kind of experience of serve and return in terms of them communicating with us and then a caregiver giving them the same response back. So you could see quite clearly that because those babies hadn't had positive interaction, touch, connection and an attachment to anyone, they were quite fearful, they were quite nervous. And of course, when you're quite fearful and quite nervous, you set your stress response off again. So then we get the cycle that I was talking about at the beginning for young children in orphanage settings, where they can actually constantly be in a state of stress, which then blocks the ability for those brain cells to connect, wires their brain for fear rather than wiring their brain for love, which is why what we do when we teach infant massage, we teach nurture and touch, we teach all the things around creating secure attachment. That's why it's so powerful, because we're starting to wire their brains for love rather than fear, and then that what brain wiring will travel with those children and as they become adults, and that's how that society develops. So we want to have a society of humans that are we have brains wired for love and not brains that are wired for fear, anxiety and depression. So that's the long-term effects. Sadly, it's really difficult to work in orphanage settings and see this, especially with all of the research that I know. All I can do is try to teach the staff there how they can practically give the babies what they need to support their brain development, and try to make a difference that way. So the last thing really was, what can you actually practically do then to help to soothe your baby if you think your baby is suffering from stress? So the quickest, easiest way to help to calm your baby if you think they're feeling quite stressed or anxious is to physically connect with them. Touch is your baby's most developed sense at birth. Babies feel their emotions through their bodies. So when you pick up your baby and physically connect with your baby, you instantly communicate to that baby that they're safe, they're secure, they're loved, they're accepted, and they belong. And when babies have that sense of security, then they're able to regulate those stress hormones in the body, and they start to relax. When we physically touch anybody, our bodies produce oxytocin, which is the most powerful hormone in the relaxation responses. So just by picking up your baby and cuddling your baby, you get the oxytocin flowing. That's going to relax your baby. It's going to relax you as well. It's a very important hormone in mothering generally. And so by physically connecting with your baby, that is the quickest way to help them relax. And that's why when your baby cries, you should never, ever, ever worry about picking your baby up or giving your baby cuddles or responding to your baby's needs, because when you do that, you are wiring your baby's brain for love, and you are teaching your baby that when your baby needs somebody comes, somebody cares, someone loves them, they are safe, which, is the foundation of mental health. So it's absolutely crucial that when our babies cry, that we respond to them with love and care, and we help to nurture them in that way. When babies become older, from 18 months, when they have a sense of themselves, that's when we can introduce things like boundaries and introduce why we do certain types of behaviour. But under 18 months, when babies cry, what they need is they're communicating to us that they need our help, and it's our duty as parents and caregivers to meet their needs, help them to regulate their emotions, and help them to understand the world is compassionate and has empathy for them. And that is the most important thing you can ever do for your baby. So that's why touch in all its forms, be it cuddles, skin contact, baby wearing, breastfeeding, co-sleeping, co-bathing, yoga, massage, anything you like, all of those things are the most powerful ways to relax your baby. They are the most powerful ways to communicate love to your baby, and they are the best ways to reduce stress in your baby as well. So that's why I am so passionate about what I do when I teach all about the benefits of touch, because I know how it can really help to give babies the best possible start in life. Okay, so I hope that's been interesting to you. If you would like to know more about some of the studies that I'm talking about, on the Blossom and Berry website there is a whole area in the parents area which has research studies that back up what I've just talked about. There's loads of videos about the importance of attachment. You can find out about my work in orphanages in Malawi as well, so you can see how we're trying to make a difference there. And yeah, if you want to find out a little bit more about stress response and relaxation response in children, we've also got lots of videos on YouTube that you can watch as well. So please do put any comments in the box below if you have a new mummy or daddy in your life who's suffering from stress themselves or has a baby that's got stress. Please do share. This is really important information, and it's practical techniques which can help someone right now if their baby's crying a lot and they don't know what to do and they're anxious and worried about it. So please do share, and let's help to wire more babies' brains with love and connection, and just help to soothe and calm those that need a little bit of extra special care. Okay, thanks for listening. Catch you later. Bye.